Gabriel, about if Raila Odinga needed to do something or say something following the statement by Edwin Sifuna, and also what we saw transpire between Simbarati and his supporters and Didmus Barasa.
I agree with Mutuma to the extent that Raila has a high moral authority to shepherd his flock, the supporters and even politicians in his camp. And so is William Ruto. Remember a few days ago, my friend, a very close friend, Aaron Cheriwot, was saying, you know, si kama wale watu ambao wanarusha mawe, tukianza hii nchi itasimama. What does that say? Of him as the senator for Kericho, and of course his party leader William Ruto. And of course it doesn't stop with William Ruto. It goes all the way to the president, who is also the party leader of Jubilee, and other people like Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi. They have a responsibility as political leaders and leaders in their own right to rein on their supporters and of course their politicians to ensure that peace prevails, particularly going into the 2022 election. As to whether Raila owes Kenyans an apology, that's neither here nor there. It is that there is an offense that has been committed for whatever reason. It doesn't matter what the reason is, it matters that there is an offense that has been committed, and multi-agencies need to move swiftly and do their investigations and prosecute, and Kenyans need to see action. If it is Edwin Sifuna, if it is Didmus Barasa, if it is Simbarati, if it is any other politician or any Kenyan. Remember, we're just talking of one isolated incident of Didmus Barasa. But there are also allegations that people might have died in Kibra. There are allegations that other offenses like voter bribery might have taken place in Kibra. These are things that we needed to have and put in place and know that as Kenyans we cannot accept this going into 2022. Because if we are going to do that, then it means that these issues are going to, you know, to just burst on us. That it is Kibra, it will extend to other constituencies, to extend to other counties. And what will we be talking about in 2022? We're going back to 2007, and 2007, 2008 might actually look like a child play.
Okay. I don't know, I haven't had anything about any deaths, but I have had about voter bribery. Do you, just before I come to you, Gabriel, you know, does it, the argument that Arati's supporters were incensed or provoked by this alleged voter bribery, what do you say to that?
They cannot take law in their own hands. And two wrongs don't make a right. You cannot commit an offense because another person has committed an offense, so you are retaliating an offense. There is only very few instances when the law might allow you to probably in self-defense. So if there is voter bribery, is it self-defense that they are talking about? What self-defense?
The table is moving.
Oh, the table is moving.
Yeah.
Oh, it has wheels.
It's on wheels, yeah.
Okay. All right. So it cannot afford ODM or any party or any individual to talk about there is an offense that has been committed, no agency has taken any action, so we are also equally committing an offense. That can never be a defense in any court of law.
Gabriel, do two wrongs make a right?
No, I totally agree. I totally agree with my friend here when he says, you know what, it cannot be the standard. You know, I pluck your eye, you pluck my eye. I don't think that's the standard, you know. So where a law has, or where the law has been broken, you know, you cannot retaliate by breaking the law. I mean, it does not even make sense. So as much as we agree, these are electoral malpractices, which actually need to be nipped and need to be taken care of. You still cannot take the law into your hands. But then again, there's a question that you've asked, which I don't think we've really talked about it satisfactorily, and I would really like to, you know, throw my last word on it. Do Raila Odinga owe as an apology? First of all, I may not say he does. I would not say even William Ruto does. I would not even say Uhuru Kenyatta does, or any other person. But they owe us one thing. They owe us good leadership. That they do owe us. All right? And what is good leadership? What are the testaments of good leadership? And who should stand as the moral gatekeeper when it comes to good leadership. That in itself, they owe each and every Kenyan. And what that tells you is that they should not accept, wherever they are, the people that are looking up to them to feel as if they are condoning bad behavior, to see as if they are condoning violence. All right? So it is up to them. The example I gave you about the late John McCain, it is up to them to live by such a decree. When you are on a campaign trail and you see somebody is trying to bring vile and bad or tribal nuances into your rally, you stop them immediately. And as a matter of fact, you can kick them out. It does not matter what they bring to the table. That is why I'm saying they owe us good leadership. All right? They may not pick the microphone, Olive, and say, oh, I apologize, oh, I do, oh, no. But what they owe us, almost as a near right, is good leadership.
Okay.
Because honestly, that is what we voted for. Even if most of us did not understand. Or even if most of Kenyans woke up and said, you know, I am going to vote for Olive because she speaks my tribe. Olive still owes that person good leadership. You owe them good representation. And that actually should be the epitome of good of governance. So if it is something that we are talking about Kibra, the mess that we are seeing in Kibra should not be happening when we have leaders that most of us look up to. And we still see the signs of violence and the signs of 2007-2008 being repeated.
Okay.
That should not be happening at this point in time.
All right, but
I think,
just let me ask my question. You can combine the two answers. But one thing that both the IEBC and the NCIC do agree on, though, they say politicians in crying wolf or crying violence and pointing an accusatory finger at the other side or at their opponents, they say these people sometimes are just playing politics. And one case that was brought up by the IEBC is when Mariga was attacked, and he withdrew his complaint against, remember initially during the campaigns, his I think was damaged.
Yes.
And apparently they arrested some people, he withdrew the complaint against some of them because he was afraid of losing votes. What do you say to that? That sometimes politicians are just disingenuous, they're not truly or genuinely committed to ending electoral malpractice or violence.
You know, the kind of buffoonery that we are getting from NCIC and IEBC, electoral offenses are not about politicians. This is about Kenyans and about Kenya as a country. So for them to talk about politicians being masters of doublespeak, speak so much not about the politicians but about them. Electoral offenses are never about politicians. They're about Kenyans. It is Kenyans who vote. It is Kenyans who exercise democracy. And even the politicians are also or other equally Kenyans. So you cannot say that politicians would say one thing to mean the other, they would want to withdraw. It is true that a politician may withdraw. Given the political matrix and the political dynamics, you might figure out in your wisdom or the lack of it that if you continue your continued prosecution of your case is likely to probably prejudice you in one way or the other. If that is the case, then you may want to, really tarry just a bit and ensure that you first of all win an election before anything is done. But as I said, the criminal offenses are not against individuals, much as the individuals are the victims, but it's against the state. So we have seen situations where a criminal case has been presented before the court, then the victim or the complainant comes and says, I want to withdraw the case. And the state says, no, once you have reported, you become a complainant, you become functus officio. And to that extent, the state will continue with the prosecution of this case to its logical conclusion. So I don't know who advises NCIC, I don't know who advises IEBC that electoral offenses are actually committed against persons. They are committed against the state. And they are when they are committed against the state, as a matter of fact, it is not Mariga who is supposed to be complaining. It is IEBC, it is NCIC, it is the National Police Service that is supposed to take this matter suo motu out of their own volition and make sure that they are tried, prosecuted to logical conclusion. So again, it cannot make them say that such a politician withdrew this case. They could withdraw the case because there is handshake. They could withdraw the case because they want to win election. Well, what about Kenyans? Remember, all these vehicles did not belong to Mariga. Probably a Kenyan like Mutuma might have lent him a car to go to KibraBy. His property has been damaged. The property of the state, it could be a police vehicle, a property of the state has been damaged. My property has been damaged. So it is not about Mariga. It is about Kenyans. It is about the state. And the state needs to take action. There is no agency that can come and say that politicians are masters of doublespeak. And it is true, politicians are masters of doublespeak. You've just seen what William Ruto says of Raila, that he needs to make an apology. In response to that,
he didn't say apology necessarily. He just, in essence, called him a hypocrite.
Yes. What does that say about him as a person? When the politicians that are affiliated to him are also making such utterances, and even more gruesome utterances to the effect that they will stall the operations of a country because their people, apparently their people are being evicted from Mau. It says so much about the politicians. But Raila Odinga, William Ruto, they don't have legal obligation, equitable obligation to apologize to Kenyans because some of their politicians made certain utterances, but they have moral obligation.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. And speaking of political, of doublespeak, I'm not saying this is doublespeak, but again, it comes up because ODM are saying when William Ruto makes statements such as this, he tweeted, as Kenyans, we demand that Tinga, his party, unconditionally, unequivocally, and publicly renounce the culture of violence, chaos, terror, and gangsterism, the signature modus operandi as witnessed in Kibra, and actually he did demand an apology, and unreservedly apologize to victims past and present for their hurt and loss. ODM says, now he's condemning violence because it doesn't suit his purposes.
That's, Olive, we cannot be blind to the fact that we've really come from far, and it's just I don't know whether we've been able to come from that cocoon that violence is started by politicians, and to a large extent those are the people who start, because from what we've been told, politicians are the ones who dish out money, politicians are the ones who rile the crowd, politicians are the ones who send these goons. And we've seen, to an extent, they are the people behind much of the violence that we see. And so for one not to be able to have their pulse on the ground of where things are going, of where Kenya is headed, to me sometimes it's very unfortunate, because you sometimes wonder whether you can believe in such people when they are really talking about half of the time things that matter. And I've had so many people put not only Raila but most of his brigade, as they've associated them with violence. And as much as you'd like to say violence does not only happen in areas where ODM is, we've seen violence everywhere, mainly when you have by-elections. Not by-elections, mainly when you have when you're going for nominations. Countrywide, everybody is running around, cars are being stoned, So I think it's a culture, Olive, that we need to run away from. I won't baptize it towards an individual. I won't baptize it towards any political party. This is a culture that we need to run away from. And when we sit down to read the articles that we are reading, whether they are going to be contained in the document that we just told you about, like what Johansen Krigler left, the Agenda 4, whether you're talking, probably what may be contained in the BBI, when we are talking about the 9 points that created the commission that went out to seek the advice from Kenyans, they were talking about great things. They were talking about corruption. They were talking about violence. They were talking about national ethos. What are those? Right? And if we are serious about a document that will be released, what part should we be playing? All right? Should we not play a part that shows the world that we are ready to change from a scenario that brings this country to a halt every election cycle? That 2 years before we go into an election, a year rather, before an election, and 1 year after, there's nothing in matters development that go on, that Kenya precipitates only on 3 years, right? Should we not be serious to put such mannerisms behind us? And when you think about this, it brings the culture to mind. So this is a culture that we must walk away from. And yes, I can see where the Deputy President is coming from when he said there are things we need to renounce totally. And this only should not be with the Deputy President alone. I would expect, like I told you, every leader of goodwill to be preaching the very same thing, including the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. I would want to be in a space where he not only goes to Kibra, but he goes to Nyeri and says, violence in this country is kaput. We will not see a repeat of this. And another leader, Musalia Mudavadi, goes to another corner and says the very same thing. The likes of Boni Khalwale, the likes of the senators that we have, people who are spewing anger and hatred,